Michelle had learned 3 survival rules working for Manhattan's elite: keep your head down, your mouth shut, and never, ever make eye contact. But when the elevator doors opened to chaos and gunfire echoing through the marble lobby, survival meant running straight into the back seat of a gleaming black Mercedes. The door clicked shut behind her. Locked. And the man in the driver's seat turned to face her with eyes cold enough to freeze her blood, a gun resting casually on his lap like a business report. Michelle's world was built on routines: 6 a.m. subway, 7 a.m. mop bucket, 11 p.m. collapse into bed. Tonight was supposed to be no different. She'd just finished polishing the chrome fixtures on the 47th floor of the Pinnacle Tower when the building's security system screamed to life. Red lights. Sprinting guards. The unmistakable crack of gunshots somewhere below. She didn't think. Thinking got you killed. She ran down the service stairs, her worn sneakers slapping against concrete, her heart hammering against her ribs. The street was a blur of rain and neon when she burst through the side exit. And there it was, a black Mercedes S-Class, idling at the curb, back door hanging open like an invitation from God himself. Michelle dove inside, slamming the door behind her. The silence swallowed her whole. No Uber app chime. No friendly "where to?" No pop music on the radio. Just breathing. Low. Controlled. Dangerous. She turned her head slowly, the way you do when you know you've made a terrible mistake but your body hasn't caught up to your brain yet. The man in the driver's seat wasn't watching the road. He was watching her. Sharp jawline. Perfectly tailored black suit that probably cost more than her entire year's salary. Dark hair swept back with the kind of precision that suggested he controlled everything in his life, including who lived and who didn't. And his hand rested on a matte black pistol like it was an extension of his body. Seo-Joon didn't smile. Didn't frown. He just studied her with the intensity of a predator deciding whether she was prey or something more interesting. Wrong car, he said quietly, his accent turning the English words into something sharp and elegant. Michelle's voice came out as a whisper. I can get out. The locks clicked. All 4 doors. Synchronized. Final. No, Seo-Joon said, his gaze never leaving hers in the rearview mirror as he shifted the car into drive. I don't think you can. The Mercedes pulled away from the curb, smooth as a knife through silk, carrying Michelle away from everything she knew and into a world where people like her didn't survive. Except Michelle had survived before. And she'd do it again. Even if it meant sitting 3 feet away from a man who looked like he knew 100 ways to make a body disappear. Subscribe to see how this unfolds and comment where you're watching from. I will love to say hello to you just to know how far our story is going. The Mercedes glided through rain-slicked streets like a shark through dark water. Michelle pressed herself against the leather seat, her cleaning uniform suddenly feeling like a costume in a play she hadn't auditioned for. She could feel Seo-Joon's eyes on her through the rearview mirror, studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. You don't know who I am, he said. Not a question. An observation. Michelle's throat was dry. Should I? For the first time, something flickered across his face. Amusement, maybe. Or something more dangerous. Most people in this city know my face. Or they know enough to stay away from cars like this one. I'm not most people, Michelle said, surprised by the steadiness in her own voice. I'm nobody. Nobody, Seo-Joon repeated, tasting the word. Nobody runs from a building under lockdown. Nobody has blood on their shoes. He gestured with 2 fingers, and Michelle looked down. Red smears on her white sneakers. Not her blood. She'd stepped in it on her way out. Her mind raced. The 47th floor. Mr. Patterson's office. She'd heard voices. Shouting. Then the gunshot that sent her running. I clean buildings, Michelle said carefully. Sometimes I see things I shouldn't. I've learned it's healthier not to remember them. Seo-Joon's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Smart. He took a turn onto a street Michelle didn't recognize, heading away from her neighborhood, away from everything familiar. What's your name? Michelle. Michelle, he said, and somehow her name sounded different in his mouth. Foreign and intimate all at once. I'm Seo-Joon. And you're going to stay with me tonight. Panic spiked through her chest. I can't, I have work tomorrow, I need to. The building you were cleaning is a crime scene now. You won't be working there tomorrow. His voice was calm, factual. And if the wrong people saw you leave, they'll be looking for you. So you have two choices, come with me to a place they won't find you, or take your chances on the street. He met her eyes in the mirror. Choose quickly. Michelle thought of her studio apartment, the peeling paint and the broken radiator. She thought of the faces she'd seen in Patterson's office on her last cleaning shift, men in expensive suits who spoke in low voices and looked at her like she was furniture. Men who wouldn't hesitate to silence furniture that might have ears. Fine, she whispered. But just for tonight. Seo-Joon's safe house wasn't what she expected. No mansion, no compound with gates and guards. Just a brownstone in Brooklyn that looked like every other brownstone on the block. Deliberately ordinary. Strategically invisible. He led her inside without a word, his hand ghosting near the small of her back but never quite touching. The interior was sparse but expensive, minimalist furniture, abstract art that probably cost more than Michelle made in a year. And cameras. She counted 4 just in the entryway. You'll stay in the guest room, Seo-Joon said, pointing up a narrow staircase. Don't leave without telling me. Don't open the door for anyone. Don't exist, Michelle finished. I'm good at that. He turned to look at her fully for the first time since they'd left the car. Really look at her. His gaze traveled from her white headband to her sensible shoes, taking in every detail of her maid's uniform with the focus of a man who missed nothing. You're afraid, he said. But not of me. Not really. You're afraid of something else. Michelle's hands clenched at her sides. I should be afraid of you. You have a gun. I have several guns. He shrugged out of his suit jacket, revealing a shoulder holster she hadn't noticed before. But you're still more afraid of whatever made you run into a stranger's car than you are of the stranger himself. That tells me you're either very stupid or very desperate. Maybe both, Michelle said quietly. Seo-Joon studied her for another long moment, then nodded like she'd passed some test she didn't know she was taking. Get some sleep, Michelle. Tomorrow, we'll talk about why you're really running. As she climbed the stairs to the guest room, Michelle felt his eyes on her back, heavy as a hand. She'd survived by being invisible for 3 years. But something told her that with Seo-Joon, invisibility wasn't going to be an option anymore. Morning came too early. Michelle woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of coffee drifting up from downstairs. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then it all crashed back, the gunfire, the car, the man with eyes like winter. She found Seo-Joon in the kitchen, dressed in dark slacks and a white shirt rolled up to his elbows, reading something on his phone. He glanced up when she entered. Coffee? He asked, already pouring a second cup. Michelle took it, wrapping her hands around the warm ceramic. Thank you. We need to talk. Seo-Joon set his phone down, giving her his full attention. I made some calls last night. The building you were working in? The company that hired you? It's a shell corporation. Money laundering front for the Volkov syndicate. Michelle's stomach dropped. I didn't know. I know you didn't. That's why you're still alive. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed. But you were there when they executed one of their accountants. Victor Patterson. He was stealing from them. The blood on her shoes made sense now. So did the running. The Volkovs will assume you saw something, Seo-Joon continued. They'll come looking. And when they find you, they won't ask questions first. Michelle's hands trembled. She set the coffee down before she spilled it. So what do I do? Run? Change my name? Leave the city? You could try. Seo-Joon tilted his head. But they're thorough. And he paused, and something shifted in his expression. You're interesting to me. Interesting how? Michelle asked warily. You move like a ghost. I watched you walk into this house last night. No wasted movement. Minimal noise. You catalogued every exit, every window, every potential weapon. He smiled slightly. You're trained to be invisible. That's a valuable skill. It's a survival skill. There's a difference. Is there? Seo-Joon pushed off from the counter, closing the distance between them. I have a problem, Michelle. I run certain operations in this city. Operations that require discretion. My guards are effective, but they're visible. Noticeable. They can't go certain places without drawing attention. Michelle's breath caught. But a cleaning woman could. Exactly. His dark eyes held hers. I need someone who can move through spaces I can't. Someone smart enough to understand what they're seeing. Someone desperate enough to take the risk. And if I say no? Then I'll give you money for a bus ticket and wish you luck outrunning the Volkovs. He stepped back, giving her space. But we both know how that ends. Michelle thought of the years she'd spent running, hiding, building a life so small and quiet that nobody would notice her. And now here was this man, this dangerous, calculating man, offering her a different kind of invisibility. One with teeth. What exactly would I have to do? She asked. Seo-Joon's smile was sharp as a blade. For now? Exactly what you've been doing. Clean buildings. Scrub floors. Empty trash. But while you're doing it, you'll be my eyes and ears in places my enemies think are safe. I'd be a spy. You'd be an employee. With benefits. He picked up his phone, typed something, and showed her the screen. A number with more zeros than Michelle had seen in her life. Monthly salary. Plus protection. Plus a safe place to live that isn't a studio with a broken radiator. Michelle's heart hammered. It was insane. Suicidal, probably. But what was the alternative? Running forever? Looking over her shoulder until the day she didn't look fast enough? I want it in writing, she said. A contract. Terms. Boundaries. Seo-Joon's expression shifted, surprise, then something like respect. You negotiate. I like that. I've learned not to trust verbal agreements. Smart. He extended his hand. We have a deal, then. You work for me. I keep you alive. And we both get what we need. Michelle looked at his hand, thought of every choice that had led her to this moment, and took it. His grip was firm, warm, and somehow felt like she was shaking hands with the devil himself. When do I start? She asked. Tonight, Seo-Joon said. I'll have your contract ready by then. And Michelle? He squeezed her hand once before releasing it. Welcome to the syndicate. The penthouse overlooked Central Park like a throne overlooking a kingdom. Michelle stood in the service entrance of the Apex Tower, her cleaning cart in front of her, her heart trying to escape through her ribs. You remember the layout? Seo-Joon's voice was a whisper in her ear, transmitted through the nearly invisible earpiece he'd given her. Top drawer of the desk in the study, Michelle whispered back, pretending to adjust her headband. Black flash drive. In and out. 15 minutes. That's how long the security rotation gives you before cameras come back online in that wing. 15 minutes to break into the private study of Dmitry Volkov's right-hand man. 15 minutes to steal information that could destabilize half the criminal networks in New York. No pressure. Michelle pushed her cart toward the elevator, nodding at the night security guard who barely glanced at her. Invisible, just like always. The uniform was armor. Nobody looked twice at the help. The penthouse was obscene in its luxury: marble floors, crystal chandeliers, art that belonged in museums. Michelle worked methodically, dusting surfaces she'd already dusted, emptying trash cans that were already empty, moving closer to the study with each pass. 2 minutes until the window opens, Seo-Joon said in her ear. Guard is changing posts now. Michelle's hands were steady as she pulled out her cleaning supplies. Hidden in the bottom of her mop bucket was a set of lock picks she'd been carrying since her previous life, the life she'd left behind in Chicago. The life nobody knew about. She'd been good at this once. Before law school. Before she'd discovered her professor was running a fraud scheme and made the mistake of trying to expose him. Before she'd learned that justice was a luxury and survival meant becoming someone else entirely. Windows open, Seo-Joon said. Go. Michelle slipped into the study, closing the door behind her with barely a sound. The desk was massive, mahogany, expensive. She opened the top drawer. Files. Papers. A Rolex watch. No flash drive. Not in the top drawer, she whispered. Try the bottom left. She did. More files. A handgun. Still no flash drive. Clock's ticking, Michelle. Sweat beaded on her forehead. She forced herself to think. If she were hiding something important, where would she put it? Somewhere accessible but not obvious. Somewhere she'd check regularly but... Her eyes landed on the desktop calendar. She lifted it. Underneath, taped to the wood, was a small black flash drive. Got it, she breathed. Good. Now get out. You have 4 minutes before. The door handle turned. Michelle's world went into slow motion. She pocketed the flash drive, grabbed her cleaning spray, and was wiping down the desk when a man in an expensive suit walked in. He stopped, surprised. What are you doing in here? Michelle kept her head down, her accent thickening the way it did when she needed to seem less threatening, less memorable. So sorry, sir. I clean the desk. I leave now. This room is off limits. His hand moved toward his jacket. Toward a weapon. The cleaning supervisor, she tell me to clean all rooms. Michelle backed toward the door, clutching her spray bottle. I make mistake. Very sorry. The man studied her for a long moment. Michelle could feel Seo-Joon's tension through the earpiece, could almost hear him calculating scenarios, exit strategies, body counts. Then the man waved his hand dismissively. Get out. And tell your supervisor the study is never to be cleaned without Mr. Petrov's explicit permission. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Michelle bowed slightly, playing the role perfectly, and slipped out of the room. She made it to the service elevator before her knees started shaking. Made it to the lobby before she had to lean against a wall and remember how to breathe. You did good, Seo-Joon said quietly. The car is waiting outside. Southeast corner. Michelle pushed her cart out into the night, left it by the service entrance like she did this every day, and walked to the black Mercedes idling in the shadows. Seo-Joon was behind the wheel this time, and when she slid into the passenger seat, he was looking at her with something that might have been pride. That was too close, she said, handing him the flash drive. But you didn't panic. You adapted. He pocketed the drive and pulled away from the curb. You're better at this than I expected. I've had practice. Seo-Joon glanced at her. Cleaning buildings? Being someone I'm not. Michelle closed her eyes, adrenaline still singing through her veins. It's all I've been doing for 3 years. Maybe, Seo-Joon said quietly, it's time to stop pretending and start choosing who you want to be. Michelle opened her eyes and found him watching her with an intensity that had nothing to do with the mission and everything to do with the growing understanding between them. That they were both ghosts in their own way. Both hiding in plain sight. Let's get you home, he said, and somehow, when he said home, Michelle thought of the brownstone in Brooklyn instead of her empty studio. And that scared her more than any gun ever could. The boutique was the kind of place Michelle had only seen from the outside, pressing her nose to the windows while waiting for the bus after late shifts. Now she stood inside, surrounded by silk and cashmere, while Seo-Joon spoke in rapid Korean to a saleswoman who kept nodding and pulling dresses from racks. "This isn't necessary," Michelle said for the third time. "You're attending events with me now. You can't do that in a maid's uniform." Seo-Joon examined a black cocktail dress, then handed it to the saleswoman. "Try this one. I liked being invisible. You're still invisible. Just better dressed." He leaned against a display of handbags, looking completely at ease in a space that made Michelle feel like an imposter. "Think of it as another uniform. Different role, same game." Michelle took the dress into the fitting room, staring at herself in the three-way mirror. The woman looking back was a stranger, someone who might belong in penthouses and galas instead of scrubbing them clean. When she emerged, Seo-Joon's expression shifted. Something flickered in his eyes, there and gone so fast she almost missed it. "That works," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "We'll take it. And the blue one. And," he gestured at the saleswoman. "Whatever else she needs." 2 hours later, Michelle sat in the back of the Mercedes surrounded by shopping bags, feeling like she'd been dressed up as someone else's fantasy. Designer heels. Evening gowns. A coat that probably cost more than her old monthly rent. "I can't accept all this," she said. "You already did." Seo-Joon merged into traffic, his attention on the road. "It's an investment. You need to look the part." "And what part is that?" "Someone important to me." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implications neither of them was ready to examine. Michelle looked out the window, watching the city blur past. "I want to keep my bag," she said suddenly. "My cleaning bag. The one I had when I got in your car." Seo-Joon glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "Why?" "Because it's mine. Because it reminds me where I came from. Because," she stopped, searching for words. "Because everything in those bags you just bought me belongs to a woman who doesn't exist." "But that cleaning bag? That's real. That's Michelle." "What's in it?" Seo-Joon asked quietly. "Besides cleaning supplies?" Michelle's hands tightened on her lap. "Pepper spray. A burner phone. $300 in cash. A fake ID. Everything I need to disappear if I have to." "You think you'll need to disappear from me?" "I think I've learned to always have an exit strategy." Seo-Joon was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Keep the bag." "But Michelle?" He met her eyes in the mirror. "You don't need to run anymore. Not from me." "Everyone says that," Michelle said softly. "Until they don't." That night, Michelle hung the expensive dresses in the closet of what had become her room in Seo-Joon's brownstone. But she kept her cleaning bag on the floor of the closet, fully packed, just in case. Old habits died hard. And in her experience, the moment you stopped preparing for the worst was the moment it found you. She was unpacking the last bag when she found something she hadn't chosen, a small black box tucked between tissue paper. Inside was a necklace, a simple platinum chain with a single diamond pendant. No note. No explanation. Michelle held it up to the light, watching it catch fire in the lampglow. It was beautiful. Expensive. And completely at odds with everything she knew about Seo-Joon's practical, calculating nature. A knock at her door made her jump. "Come in," she called. Seo-Joon entered, still in his work clothes, looking tired in a way she'd never seen before. "You found it." "I can't accept this." "You can. You will." He closed the door behind him, and suddenly the room felt smaller. "You're risking your life for me, Michelle. The least I can do is give you something beautiful. I'm doing this because I don't have a choice. Because you gave me a deal. And you think that's all this is?" Seo-Joon stepped closer. "A business arrangement?" Michelle's heart hammered. Isn't it? He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His fingers were gentle as he took the necklace from her hands and moved behind her to fasten it around her neck. His breath was warm against her skin. You're smarter than most of my men, he said quietly. Braver than half of them. And you don't look at me like I'm a monster. Do you know how rare that is? Michelle met his eyes in the mirror across the room. You are a monster, though. Aren't you? Yes, Seo-Joon said simply. But maybe you are too. Maybe that's why this works. His hands lingered on her shoulders for just a moment before he stepped back, putting distance between them that felt both necessary and devastating. Wear it tomorrow night, he said. We have dinner with the Antonelli family. They're difficult. I need you sharp. I'm always sharp. I know. He smiled, and it transformed his face into something almost warm. That's why I chose you. After he left, Michelle touched the diamond at her throat and wondered when exactly she'd stopped being a prisoner and started being something else entirely. Something far more dangerous. The restaurant was all low lighting and expensive wine, the kind of place where they didn't put prices on the menu because if you had to ask, you didn't belong. Michelle wore the black dress from the boutique and the diamond necklace that felt like a brand against her skin, marking her as Seo-Joon's. Remember, Seo-Joon murmured as they approached the private dining room, you're a server tonight. Invisible again. They won't pay attention to you. Good. Michelle fell into step behind him, her posture shifting, her entire energy changing. Becoming background. Becoming nobody. The Antonelli family was already seated, 3 men in suits that screamed old money and violence. The patriarch, Vincent Antonelli, was silver-haired and sharp-eyed. His sons flanked him like wolves flanking an alpha. Seo-Joon, Vincent said, not standing. A power play. You're late. Traffic. Seo-Joon took his seat across from Vincent, completely unbothered. Shall we order? Michelle moved around the table, pouring water, playing her role perfectly. The Antonellis didn't even glance at her. She was furniture. Wallpaper. Exactly what she needed to be. I hear you've been expanding into our territory, Vincent said, accepting a menu he wouldn't read. The docks. That's Antonelli business. Was Antonelli business, Seo-Joon corrected gently. Now it's a joint venture. Unless you prefer I speak with the Volkovs instead? Vincent's jaw tightened. You play dangerous games, boy. I play to win. Seo-Joon smiled. As do you. That's why we're here. To discuss terms. Michelle poured wine, her hands steady, her ears sharp. The conversation flowed around her, percentages, territories, threats wrapped in polite language. She was refilling Vincent's glass when his son, Marco, spoke. The problem is trust, Marco said, leaning back in his chair. How do we know you won't cut us out the first chance you get? You don't, Seo-Joon said simply. Just like I don't know you won't do the same. That's why we put it in writing. Legal contracts. Binding agreements. Legal. Vincent laughed, harsh and sharp. There's nothing legal about what we do. Then maybe it's time to change that. Seo-Joon's voice was steel wrapped in silk. The old ways are dying, Vincent. We either evolve or we get buried. Michelle was turning away from the table when she heard it, Vincent's youngest son, Luca, speaking in Italian to his brother. She'd learned Italian in her previous life, before Chicago, before running. Before Michelle. He won't make it through the month, Luca said quietly. Father's already talked to the Koreans back home. They want him gone. Too ambitious. Too dangerous. Marco's response was just as quiet. The gala next week. During the fireworks. No witnesses. Michelle's blood turned to ice. She kept pouring, kept moving, gave no sign she understood. But her mind was racing, cataloging information, calculating risks. Seo-Joon was going to die in a week. And if she didn't tell him, she'd die right alongside him. The dinner ended with handshakes and false smiles. Seo-Joon and Michelle left together, and the moment they were in the car, she turned to him. "They're going to kill you." Seo-Joon's expression didn't change. "I know." "You know?" Michelle's voice rose. "Then why did you?" "Because I needed to know when. And where." He pulled away from the curb, his hands relaxed on the wheel. "What did you hear?" "Next week. The gala. During the fireworks." Michelle's heart was still hammering. "Seo-Joon, we need to be ready." He glanced at her. "This is why I needed you, Michelle. My men would never have heard that. They're too visible, too obvious. But you?" A small smile. "You're a ghost. A ghost who just saved your life." "Yes," Seo-Joon said quietly. "You did. And I won't forget that." He reached across the center console, his hand finding hers. Michelle should have pulled away. Should have maintained distance. Should have remembered this was business, just business. Instead, she held on tight. Rain hammered the windows of the brownstone while Michelle sat in Seo-Joon's study, the flash drive from the Volkov penthouse plugged into his laptop. She'd been staring at the files for 2 hours, her coffee long cold, her heart growing colder with every document she opened. "What's wrong?" Seo-Joon appeared in the doorway, reading her body language the way he always did. "These files," Michelle said, her voice hollow. "The Volkov operation. It's bigger than you said. I told you they run most of the eastern seaboard. They run politicians. Judges. Police captains." Michelle turned the laptop toward him. "Including the ones in Chicago. Including the ones who came after me 3 years ago." Seo-Joon went very still. "Tell me." So she did. Michelle told him about law school, about the professor who'd recruited her for what she thought was legitimate research. About discovering the fraud scheme. About going to the authorities, naive enough to think they'd care. "They cared," Michelle said bitterly. "Just not the way I expected. Professor Raymond had connections. The kind that make evidence disappear and witnesses have accidents. I had 2 choices, disappear myself, or end up in the river. So you ran." "I ran. Changed my name. Became invisible. Worked jobs that paid cash and didn't ask questions." She laughed without humor. "Turns out cleaning buildings was the perfect cover. Nobody looks at the help." Seo-Joon was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled up a chair beside her, his knee brushing hers. "Show me." They spent the next hour combing through files. The Volkovs had their fingers in everything: drugs, weapons, human trafficking, political corruption that went all the way to the governor's mansion. And there, buried in a subfolder labeled Chicago Assets, was Professor Raymond's name. "He's been working for them the whole time," Michelle whispered. "The fraud scheme I uncovered? That was just the surface. He was laundering money for the Volkovs through the university's research grants. And you almost exposed it." Seo-Joon pulled up another file. "This is a hit list. People who've gotten too close to the operation. You're on it." Michelle's breath caught. There was her old name. Her student ID photo. And a status marker, outstanding. "They've been looking for me for 3 years," she said. "And I just walked right back into their crosshairs." "No." Seo-Joon's hand covered hers on the mouse. "You walked into my protection. There's a difference." "Your protection?" Michelle turned to face him. "Seo-Joon, the Volkovs are planning to kill you next week. How are you going to protect me when you can't even protect yourself?" "Because now I know what they're planning. And because I have something they don't." "What?" He smiled, and it was sharp enough to cut. "I have you. The invisible woman. The ghost who walks through walls and hears everything. Michelle, you're not a weakness. You're a weapon. I'm a law school dropout who cleans toilets for a living. You were a law school dropout who cleaned toilets. Now you're the woman who's going to help me burn the Volkov's empire to the ground. Seo-Joon stood, pulling her up with him. They destroyed your life. They tried to destroy mine. And next week at that gala, we're going to show them what happens when they underestimate people like us. Michelle looked at the files, at her name on a hit list, at the evidence of corruption so deep it had poisoned an entire city. And something inside her shifted. She'd spent 3 years running, hiding, being afraid. Maybe it was time to stop running. What do you need me to do? She asked. Seo-Joon's smile was dangerous and beautiful. What you do best. Be invisible. Be my eyes and ears. And when the moment comes? He cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing her cheekbones. Be the last thing they never see coming. Michelle leaned into his touch, this man who'd gone from stranger to savior to something she didn't have words for. I'm done hiding, she said. I'm done being afraid. Good, Seo-Joon murmured. Because the woman I'm looking at right now? She's terrifying. And I mean that as the highest compliment. He kissed her then, fierce and claiming, and Michelle kissed him back like she was drowning and he was air. Outside, the rain kept falling. But inside, something was burning. Something that felt a lot like revenge. The rain came down in sheets, turning the Brooklyn streets into rivers of asphalt and memory. Michelle sat in the passenger seat of the Mercedes, her new coat soaked through, watching water stream down the windows like tears. We need to move, Seo-Joon said, his hand resting on the gear shift. But he didn't move. Couldn't move. Because surrounding the car, barely visible through the rain and darkness, were 6 men with guns. How did they find us? Michelle's voice was steady despite the fear singing through her veins. They didn't find us. They were waiting. Seo-Joon's jaw tightened. Someone told them our route. Someone inside my organization. Your brother? Most likely. He'd suspected for weeks. Ji-hoon, his younger brother, had been making moves, building alliances, whispering doubts about Seo-Joon's leadership. But to sell him out to the Antonellis? That was a betrayal that ran deeper than ambition. One of the gunmen stepped forward, tapping on Seo-Joon's window with the barrel of a pistol. Vincent Antonelli's enforcer. Marco. Get out, Marco called through the glass. Both of you. Nice and slow. Seo-Joon's hand moved toward his shoulder holster. There are 6 of them, Michelle said quietly. And 2 of us. We won't make it. I know. So what do we do? Seo-Joon looked at her, really looked at her, this woman who'd stumbled into his life by accident and become essential without either of them planning it. Can you drive? Michelle's eyes widened. I never learned. I've lived in the city my whole life. I never needed to. You need to now. He reached under his seat, pulled out a second gun, and pressed it into her hands. The gas is on the right. Brake on the left. Steering wheel does exactly what you think it does. You're insane. Probably. He smiled, quick and reckless. When I say go, you slide into the driver's seat and you drive. Don't stop. Don't look back. Just drive. What about you? I'll provide a distraction. Marco tapped the window again, harder. Last chance, Seo-Joon. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Seo-Joon opened the door. Everything happened at once. He came out shooting, and the night exploded into gunfire and shouting. Michelle threw herself across the center console into the driver's seat, her hands shaking as she gripped the steering wheel. Gas on the right. Brake on the left. She stomped on the gas. The Mercedes lurched forward like a startled horse, tires screaming against wet asphalt. Someone was shooting at them, the back window spiderwebbed with cracks but didn't shatter. Bulletproof glass. Thank God. Seo-Joon. Michelle screamed. He was running alongside the car, firing behind him. He grabbed the passenger door handle, yanked it open, and threw himself inside even as Michelle wrestled with the wheel, the car fishtailing wildly. Turn left. Seo-Joon shouted. Left. Michelle cranked the wheel. They took the corner on 2 tires, and she was pretty sure she was going to die. They were both going to die. This was the stupidest plan in the history of stupid plans. And then they were on the straightaway, and somehow, impossibly, they were pulling away from the gunman. You're doing it, Seo-Joon said, breathless, bleeding from a graze on his shoulder but grinning like a madman. You're actually doing it. I'm going to kill you, Michelle panted. If we survive this, I'm going to kill you myself. Fair. He pressed his hand to his shoulder, blood seeping between his fingers. Take the next right. There's a motel about 2 miles from here. We'll hole up there until I can call in reinforcements. Michelle took the right turn more smoothly this time, her hands finding a rhythm with the steering wheel. Behind them, the Brooklyn streets were empty. They'd lost their pursuers. For now. Your brother sold you out, she said. I know. Are you going to kill him? Seo-Joon was quiet for a long moment. Ask me again when I'm not bleeding. The motel was exactly the kind of place where nobody asked questions and cash was king. Michelle helped Seo-Joon inside, the rain still pouring, both of them soaked and shaking from adrenaline. She'd never driven before tonight. Never held a gun. Never been shot at. And somehow, impossibly, they were alive. Seo-Joon sat on the edge of the sagging motel bed, and Michelle realized with a jolt that the roles had reversed. He was the one who needed help now. He was the one who was vulnerable. Let me see, she said quietly. He pulled off his ruined jacket and shirt. The bullet had grazed his shoulder, not deep, but bleeding enough to be worrying. Michelle found a first aid kit in the bathroom, probably left by previous guests who'd needed it for the same reasons. She cleaned the wound, her hands steady now, muscle memory kicking in from a life she'd left behind. She'd done this before. Patched up injuries. Stayed calm in emergencies. Before she became Michelle, before she learned to be invisible, she'd been someone who helped people. Where did you learn to do this? Seo-Joon asked, watching her work. My mom was a nurse. Before she passed. She taught me. Michelle pressed a bandage to his shoulder, her fingers gentle. Said you never know when you'll need to save someone's life. Including your own. Smart woman. She was. Michelle's throat tightened. She would have hated what I've become. A criminal's accomplice. A liar. A survivor, Seo-Joon interrupted. He caught her wrist, his grip weak but insistent. You're a survivor, Michelle. There's no shame in that. Isn't there? She looked at him, this dangerous man she'd somehow started to care about. I drove a getaway car tonight. I helped you escape. That makes me just as guilty as you are. Yes, Seo-Joon said simply. It does. Do you regret it? Michelle thought about the gunman in the rain. Thought about her name on a hit list. Thought about 3 years of running and hiding and being afraid. No, she whispered. I don't regret it. Seo-Joon pulled her closer, until she was standing between his knees, his forehead resting against her stomach. Thank you, he said quietly. For not leaving me. Michelle's hands found his hair, her fingers threading through the dark strands. Where would I go? You're the only person in this city who knows I exist. That's not true anymore. He looked up at her, his eyes dark and intense. I see you, Michelle. Not the maid. Not the ghost. You. And you're the most real thing in my life. She kissed him then, tasting rain and blood and something that felt dangerously like hope. And for the first time in 3 years, Michelle wasn't running from something. She was running toward it. Even if it led straight into hell, the motel room smelled like cheap detergent and old cigarettes, but Michelle barely noticed. She sat on the edge of the bed next to Seo-Joon, watching him sleep for the first time since she'd known him. Without the sharp focus, without the calculating intelligence burning in his eyes, he looked younger. Almost vulnerable. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. Michelle glanced at the screen, 15 missed calls from someone named Ji-hoon. His brother. The traitor. Seo-Joon's eyes opened, immediately alert despite the pain medication she'd convinced him to take. What time is it? 3 a.m. You've been out for 4 hours. Michelle handed him water. Your brother keeps calling. Let him. Seo-Joon sat up slowly, wincing. He's probably trying to figure out if I'm dead yet. What are you going to do about him? What I should have done months ago. Cut him out. Seo-Joon's voice was cold, but Michelle could hear the pain underneath. He's my blood. But he chose the Antonellis over family. That's unforgivable. Michelle thought about family, about the mother she'd lost, the father she'd never known. About the loneliness that had driven her to work too hard, trust the wrong people, end up running for her life. I don't have anyone, she said quietly. No family. No friends who know my real name. For 3 years, I've been completely alone. You're not alone anymore. Seo-Joon's hand found hers in the darkness. You have me. Do I? Michelle turned to face him. Or is this just convenient? The criminal and his invisible spy, working together until we both get killed? Is that what you think this is? Seo-Joon's voice was soft, dangerous. Convenience? I don't know what to think. 2 weeks ago, you were a stranger. Now I'm patching up bullet wounds and, she stopped, unsure how to finish. And what? And I'm terrified, Michelle admitted. Because I'm starting to care about you. And everyone I've ever cared about has either died or betrayed me. Seo-Joon was quiet for a long moment. Then he shifted, pulling her closer until she was curled against his uninjured side, her head on his chest where she could hear his heartbeat. My father built this organization from nothing, he said quietly. He was ruthless. Brilliant. Terrifying. And he taught me that caring about people was weakness. That trust was a luxury we couldn't afford. So I didn't. I built walls so high, nobody could get close. What changed? You did. His fingers traced patterns on her shoulder. You stumbled into my car, terrified and brave and so determined to survive. And I saw myself in you. Not the man I'd become, but the person I was before all this. Before the violence and the power plays and the empire built on blood. Michelle closed her eyes, feeling the tears she'd been holding back for 3 years finally start to fall. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be someone who matters to another person. Neither do I. Seo-Joon's laugh was soft and bitter. We're both disasters, Michelle. But maybe together, we're less of a disaster. Maybe that's enough. Is it? She looked up at him. Is it enough when your brother wants you dead? When the Volkovs want me dead? When we're both walking into a gala next week knowing it's a trap? No, Seo-Joon said honestly. It's not enough. But it's what we have. And I'm selfish enough to take it anyway. He kissed her then, slow and deep, and Michelle kissed him back like she was memorizing the moment. Because moments were all they might have left. I need to tell you something, Michelle said against his lips. About Chicago. About why I really ran. You told me. The professor. The fraud scheme. That's not all of it. Michelle pulled back, needing space to say this. I had a partner. Someone I trusted. Someone I loved. He's the one who told me to run, who helped me disappear. And then 2 weeks later, I saw his picture in the newspaper. Dead. Ruled a suicide. Seo-Joon's expression darkened. The Volkovs. I don't know for certain. But yes. Probably. Michelle's voice shook. He saved me, and it cost him everything. And I've spent 3 years wondering if I could have saved him instead. If I'd been braver. Smarter. Less of a coward. You're not a coward. Seo-Joon's hand cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. You survived. That's not cowardice. That's strength. Then why does it feel like weakness? Because you're still here. Still breathing. Still fighting. He kissed her forehead. And he would have wanted that for you. Anyone who loved you would want that. Michelle let herself believe it. For this one moment, in this terrible motel room, with this dangerous man who somehow made her feel safe, she let herself believe she deserved to survive. What happens next week? She whispered. At the gala? We spring the trap before they can. Seo-Joon's voice was steel. We use what you heard from the Antonellis. We expose Ji-hoon's betrayal. And we make it clear what happens to people who come after what's mine. And what's yours? His smile was sharp and possessive. You are. And I protect what's mine. Michelle should have been offended. Should have pushed back against the claim, the ownership. But instead, she felt something settle in her chest. Something that felt a lot like belonging. Then let's make them regret it, she said. All of them. The Antonellis. The Volkovs. Everyone who thought we were weak. Together? Seo-Joon asked. Together, Michelle confirmed. And as dawn broke over the motel, painting the rain-streaked windows gold, they began to plan their revenge. The Grandview Hotel ballroom glittered like a jewelry box, crystal chandeliers, champagne fountains, and enough expensive gowns to fund a small country. Michelle moved through the crowd in her black dress and borrowed diamonds, invisible despite being more visible than she'd been in years. Nobody looked twice at the servers. That was the beautiful irony of wealth. The richer people were, the less they saw the help. Status? Seo-Joon's voice was a whisper in her earpiece. North side, near the balcony doors, Michelle murmured, adjusting her serving tray. I count 8 Antonelli guards. 4 Volkov. And your brother is talking to Vincent near the bar. She could feel Seo-Joon's rage through the connection. Ji-hoon had arrived an hour ago, all smiles and expensive suits, playing the part of the loyal brother while planning fratricide. The fireworks start in 20 minutes, Seo-Joon said. That's when they'll make their move. Are you ready? Michelle thought about everything that had led to this moment. The wrong car. The flash drive. The motel room confessions. The way Seo-Joon looked at her like she mattered, like she was more than invisible. I'm ready, she said. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Michelle had spent the last week planting evidence, carefully edited security footage, financial records, communication logs. All of it pointing to Ji-hoon's betrayal. Not just of Seo-Joon, but of the entire syndicate. Stealing from the Volkovs. Skimming from the Antonellis. Playing both sides. Now all they had to do was reveal it. Michelle made her way to the AV booth, her server's uniform granting her access. Nobody questioned. The technician barely looked up when she entered. Champagne, she offered. Not while I'm working, but thanks. He turned back to his soundboard, already dismissing her. Michelle set down the tray and pulled out the flash drive she'd been carrying. The same one she'd stolen from the Volkov penthouse, now loaded with Ji-hoon's crimes. She plugged it into the system, fingers flying across the keyboard with the muscle memory of her old life. Law school. Research. The skills she'd buried came flooding back. 30 seconds. That's all it took. What are you? The technician started to turn. Michelle pulled the gun from under her serving tray and pressed it to his temple. Don't move. His hands went up. Jesus Christ, lady. Is the system ready for the chairman's speech? Why yes. Mr. Vincent Antonelli. In 15 minutes. Perfect. Michelle smiled. Change of programming. You're going to play what I just uploaded instead. And if you try to warn anyone, I'll shoot you. Understood? He nodded frantically. Good. Michelle backed toward the door, guns still trained on him. Count to 100. Then run. And don't come back. She slipped back into the ballroom just as the first fireworks exploded outside. The crowd oohed and awed, faces turned toward the windows, distracted by light and color. Michelle found Seo-Joon near the south entrance, impossibly handsome in his tuxedo, looking every inch the legitimate businessman he pretended to be. Their eyes met across the room, and he nodded once. The screens meant for Vincent's speech flickered to life. But instead of the Antonelli patriarch, they showed Ji-hoon. In grainy security footage, meeting with Volkov lieutenants. Accepting envelopes of cash. Laughing about his idiot brother, who trusted him. The ballroom went silent. What is this? Ji-hoon's voice carried across the sudden quiet. This is fake. Photoshopped. I would never. The timestamps are real, Seo-Joon said, stepping forward. As are the bank transfers. The offshore accounts. The communications. He looked at his brother with an expression Michelle had never seen before, pure, cold hatred. You sold us out. All of us. Vincent Antonelli was on his feet. You said you controlled your family, Seo-Joon. You said. I said my family was loyal. Seo-Joon's voice was steel. I never said my brother was smart enough to be part of it. The next few minutes were chaos. Ji-hoon tried to run and was grabbed by Seo-Joon's guards. The Volkovs and Antonellis turned on each other, accusations flying. And Michelle slipped through the crowd like smoke, heading for the exit. She'd done her part. Now came the dangerous part. She found Ji-hoon in the service corridor, flanked by guards, his face pale with rage and fear. You, he spat when he saw her. You did this. The maid. I should have known. You should have, Michelle agreed. But you didn't. None of you did. Because I'm invisible. And invisible people hear everything. She pulled out her phone, showed him the screen. Professor Raymond. The Chicago files. The connection between Ji-hoon's betrayal and the Volkov operation that had destroyed her life. You've been working with them for years, Michelle said quietly. The people who tried to kill me. The people who succeeded in killing someone I loved. You brought them into Seo-Joon's organization. You gave them access. You're the reason they knew about me. Ji-hoon's expression shifted. Understanding. Then fear. You're going to kill me. No, Michelle said. I'm going to let your brother decide what to do with you. But first, you're going to tell me everything. Every name. Every operation. Every dirty secret the Volkovs have buried. And if I don't? Michelle's smile was cold. Then I'll make sure everyone knows you talked anyway. Either way, you're dead. But you can choose whether it's quick or slow. Ji-hoon broke. They always did. 20 minutes later, Michelle had everything she needed. Names. Accounts. Operations. Enough to bring down the Volkov Empire and everyone connected to it. Including Professor Raymond. Seo-Joon found her on the roof of the hotel, watching the city lights blur through unshed tears. It's done, she said without turning around. I got what we needed. And my brother? He's in the basement. Your men have him. Michelle finally looked at him. What are you going to do? Seo-Joon was quiet for a long moment. He's family. But he betrayed us. There's only one answer to that. Michelle nodded. She'd known this was coming. Violence was the language of this world, and mercy was a luxury neither of them could afford. I'm going after the Volkovs, she said. After Raymond. After everyone who destroyed my life. And I'm going to burn it all down. I know, Seo-Joon said. I'm coming with you. You don't have to. Yes, he said firmly. I do. Because you're mine. And I protect what's mine. Always. Michelle turned to face him fully, this dangerous man who'd somehow become her partner, her protector, her everything. Then let's finish this, she said. Together. Seo-Joon pulled her close, kissed her hard, claimed her mouth the way he'd claimed her heart, completely and without apology. And below them, the city burned with secrets about to be exposed. 3 months later, Michelle stood in the office that used to belong to Seo-Joon's father, looking out over Manhattan like a queen surveying her kingdom. The brass nameplate on her desk read, Director of Operations. You're terrifying when you smile like that, Seo-Joon said from the doorway. Michelle turned, her smile widening. Professor Raymond was arrested this morning. Chicago PD, FBI, IRS. Every agency I could tip off anonymously. He'll spend the rest of his life in prison. Good. Seo-Joon crossed the room, pulled her into his arms. And the Volkovs? Dimitri's in federal custody. His lieutenants are turning on each other. The whole operation is collapsing. Michelle leaned into him, breathing in his expensive cologne and the scent of danger that would always cling to him. It's over. They're done. We did that. Together. We did. Michelle looked up at him. And now what? We've burned down everyone who came after us. Reorganized our syndicate. Made it leaner, smarter, harder to corrupt. What's next? Seo-Joon's expression was unreadable. What do you want it to be? Michelle thought about the maid she used to be. The invisible woman who scrubbed floors and avoided eye contact. That woman was dead. Had been dead from the moment she climbed into the wrong car and met a man who saw her. I want to build something, she said. Not just destroy. I want to take this organization and make it into something that matters. Something that doesn't just take from people, but protects them. Ambitious. Seo-Joon's smile was proud. Also probably impossible. So was surviving. So was bringing down the Volkovs. We did those things anyway. Because we're stubborn. Because we're powerful. Michelle kissed him, soft and sure. And because we have each other. The door opened. One of Seo-Joon's guards, their guards now, stuck his head in. Sorry to interrupt, but there's a situation at the docks. The Colombians are making noise about territory disputes again. Michelle was already moving, grabbing her coat, her mind shifting into strategy mode. I'll handle it. Seo-Joon has a meeting with the city councilman in 20 minutes. You sure? Seo-Joon asked. I'm the director of operations, Michelle said with a smile that would have terrified her 6 months ago. Operations are my job. She made it to the docks in 15 minutes. The Colombians were expecting a fight. What they got was Michelle, in her designer suit and her invisible confidence, negotiating a deal that left everyone satisfied and nobody dead. How did you do that? One of Seo-Joon's lieutenants asked as they drove back to the office. I listened, Michelle said simply. And I remembered what it's like to be invisible. To be overlooked. The Colombians didn't want a fight. They wanted respect. So I gave it to them. The boss was right about you, the lieutenant said. You're something else. Michelle smiled. She'd heard variations of this sentiment for months now, from guards, from rival syndicates, from politicians who'd learned to take her calls. The invisible maid had become impossible to ignore. That night, she and Seo-Joon stood on the balcony of his brownstone, their brownstone now, watching the city lights twinkle like fallen stars. I've been thinking, Seo-Joon said. About legitimacy. About building the kind of empire that doesn't require looking over our shoulders constantly. Legal operations? Michelle raised an eyebrow. That's ambitious even for you. You said you wanted to build something that matters. So let's do it. Real estate. Tech investments. Political lobbying. We have the money, the connections. We could transition into something sustainable. It would take years. Maybe decades. Good thing we have time. He pulled her close, his hands settling on her waist with the possessive certainty she'd come to crave. I'm not going anywhere. Are you? Michelle thought about running. About the cleaned-out escape bag she still kept in her closet, old habits dying hard. But she hadn't checked it in weeks. Hadn't thought about disappearing in months. Because she'd finally found something worth staying for. No, she said. I'm not going anywhere. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Seo-Joon's kiss was soft this time, tender, full of promises they were both finally ready to keep. And when Michelle looked out at the city, she didn't see threats anymore. She saw possibilities. She'd entered the wrong car 6 months ago, terrified and desperate and convinced she was going to die. Instead, she'd found a partner. An empire. A purpose. And maybe, just maybe, she'd found herself. The woman who'd been invisible for so long was finally, gloriously seen. And the world would never look the same again. And there you have it, Michelle's journey from invisible maid to the most powerful woman in New York's underworld. From a terrified woman who jumped into the wrong car to the director of operations who brought down empires and claimed her throne alongside the man who saw her when no one else did. If you loved watching Michelle transform from survivor to queen, smash that like button and let me know in the comments, which moment was your favorite? Was it when she first got into Seo-Joon's car? When she drove the getaway car for the first time? Or when she finally got her revenge on everyone who tried to destroy her? Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss the next story. Because trust me, we have more thrilling tales coming your way, stories of power, betrayal, unexpected love, and characters who refuse to stay invisible. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. I want to say hello and know how far Michelle and Seo-Joon's story has reached across the globe. Next time, we're diving into another world of danger, romance, and revenge you won't want to miss. Stay tuned, stay dangerous, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, remember, sometimes the wrong turn leads you exactly where you're meant to be. See you soon. Sparkles.